All right, today we're talking about how to hunt coyotes, where to hunt them, when to hunt them, what tools we use, weapons, lights, everything, all about coyotes. So when you should hunt coyotes is anytime you can get out there. Check your regulations, but in Washington State, where I'm from, you can hunt coyotes any time of year. So I typically start hunting in September and hunt through about January, but depending on your schedule or what time you have available, hunt when you can. As far as time of day goes, I find that early morning is the best, but I've also hunted coyotes plenty, even maybe a majority of the time lately in the later afternoon. That's just when it's worked in my schedule. I get out there about 1 o'clock and I've killed many coyotes hunting in the middle of the day. So if I was to advise you, I'd say early morning. But in reality, just get out there and go whenever you can. You can even hunt them at night. Again, in Washington State, it's legal to hunt coyotes at night all year round. So I hunt at night as well. And in the wintertime, that's super convenient because it gets dark at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. So night hunting doesn't necessarily mean pulling an all-nighter. And it just means it's dark out, still home by bedtime. So get out and hunt coyotes whenever you can. Where to hunt coyotes? Hunt close to home. My advice is close to home, because if you have to drive an hour to go hunt coyotes, you're going to hunt them like 3 times a year. If you can hunt within 15 minutes of your house, you might do that once a week. It's easy to find that little block of 2-3 hours at a time. It's not easy to find an entire day devoted to coyotes, right? So I say hunt them as close to home as you can, and you don't need a lot of public land, because you're calling the coyotes. So even if you had 5 acres, that's plenty, because as long as there's neighboring properties that are private land and wooded, or whatever, let's say open country, you can call those coyotes to you and shoot them on public. So the other thing is ask for permission, because a lot of landowners are more than happy to have you hunt coyotes on their property. Landowners typically see coyotes as a nuisance, and I talked to one rancher. He lost 9 calves in one winter due to coyotes. So I asked him for permission, and he said absolutely. Told me exactly where to go, when he's been seeing them, all sorts of good information. So how to hunt coyotes? These skills, rules are going to apply to almost any type of big game hunting. So my first rule with coyotes would be never skyline yourself. You'll find when you start seeing coyotes, they perch themselves up on vantage points and survey the land like a prison guard. So, and they're always on watch. So when you come to an area that you're going to hunt, my advice is park farther away than you probably want to, and walk farther than you probably want to. I like to walk at least, several hundred yards, if not a quarter mile or so. And stay low, because again, they're going to be on those vantage points, whether they're sleeping or whether they're just perched up, looking for something to eat. They're always watching. So when you're approaching your hunting spot, you need to stay low, stay down in the ravines, never do everything you can not to skyline yourself, because they'll bust you right out of the get-go, and you'll go waste 20-30 minutes calling when the only coyote that was there saw you before you even sat down. So now we're probably going to talk about the most important aspect of hunting that any hunter needs to perfect, and that is wind. Every big game critter out there has an amazing nose, and they live and die by the wind. So, and that goes for coyotes too. So one tip right off the bat would be, don't hunt probably anything, but especially coyotes. Don't hunt them on a windy day. They live and die by their nose. And if it's windy, they can't smell. They can't rely on their nose. They won't come out. You can call and call all day long. your chances are better just driving around on a windy day because you're not going to call one in. Learn to perfect the wind, and I guarantee you're going to start seeing more game, more critters every time you go out. How long do you call? There's been a lot of people that have said 15 minutes, and I started out kind of sticking to that 15-minute rule, but I've learned over the years that you got to stay longer than that. And the reason is I've gone into some spots that I know there's coyotes, right? I mean, spots that have proven to hold lots of coyotes year after year. And I'll sit there for 15 minutes and call nothing. But I'm like, I know there's coyotes here. So I stay another 15. And sure enough, 30 minutes in, out of nowhere, here's a coyote, right? And that has happened to me time and time and time again. So you got to stay longer. As far as gun choice goes, use what you have. I'm trying to get this point across that coyote hunting is not expensive. You don't need a bunch of fancy gear. My favorite caliber is 22-250. I've owned 2 of them, and I've used lots of different guns, and 22-250 is just sweet. I've used an AR 2 years. I used this 5.56, and an AR is a lot of fun in the fact that you can get follow-up shots. So you hit him bad the first shot, or you miss the first shot, he takes off running. You can blink off a couple more rounds, and you can't do that with a bolt action really. And I'll tell you what, that gets exciting. That's fun. But there's still something for me. There's something about a bolt action rifle. I do prefer it, although I have definitely gotten a lot of use out of this and killed a lot of coyotes with it. So use what you got. So what calls should you use? I prefer mouth calls. They are fun. You're so much more connected with the hunt when you're using a mouth call. You're doing it. They're cheap. They're convenient. You can throw them in your pocket. I keep them in my bino pouch, and you can experiment. You can get all sorts of different sounds and different brands and really play with it and see what you like, see what works. And the mouth call is they just add a whole little element of fun to coyote hunting that I recommend. If you're just getting into it, definitely start out with some mouth calls. They're a lot of fun. The other way to go is an electronic call. I have here a Fox Pro Banshee. I've used several other electronic calls. They all work, and there's a reason that a lot of people use them. But again, you don't have that connection with the hunt, and so they work. But for me, I really like the mouth call. The other thing about electronic call is you're dealing with batteries, and you're lugging this thing around, and it's just not as convenient. Is it effective? Absolutely. So electronic calls, they work. So if you're going to hunt at night, you're going to need some lights. I like to have 2 lights, one mounted on my gun and one in my hand. You don't need the best lights out there. I have a bunch of different lights, and yeah, the more money you spend, the better they get. But I have some cheapy lights that work really good, and that's all you need to get started. If you're thinking about getting into hunting coyotes, it can be really fun, really addicting, and you'll definitely start honing your skills in all aspects of hunting just by getting after those coyotes. So get out there, give it a try.